So today's video is going to be based upon an email that I sent out during one of my Monday through Friday emails that I send out, and on a blog post that I posted up where I was basically talking about the idea of aggression. And, because in my gym and with a lot of the questions that you guys send, I see that a lot of people, they say that they're on one end or the other of the spectrum. There are some people that have that sort of the middle ground, but a lot of people say that they lack aggression and that they can't turn it on. They can't get into that aggressive side of themselves. The flip side of it, which I relate to, because this is like I was when I was younger, some people complain that they're too aggressive and they can't turn it off, and they're always aggressive whenever they roll or they do stuff. And so from both ends, I've gotten questions of, one, how can I be more aggressive? And the other side is like, how can I turn this stuff down? And so, I'll ask you the question, because I did that in the blog post I did. Do you think that you're too aggressive, or do you think that you lack aggression? Okay, and I'll pose a question to you at the end. So again, in the blog that I based this upon, I was talking about the idea that one of the coolest things that Jiu-Jitsu gives us is it gives us, and this is combat sports in general too, judo, sambo, wrestling, boxing, all that stuff. It gives us a chance to tap into that warrior side of ourselves. That aggressive side, that side that a lot of times in society we're like, keep that down. Because if you're a man or a boy, right? Like we grew up. And like, if we become aggressive, they say, don't do that. Use your words. Don't be so aggressive. If we're wrestling around with our buddies, which we do kind of naturally, and someone squeals a little bit, they instantly reprimand us instead of saying, hey, when they squeal, that like giving us, we're testing our boundaries. And instead of like saying, hey, listen, this is how we use that kind of stuff, it's like, don't do that. That's bad. And what ends up happening is by the time and women, you guys get your own treatment with this. I know from experience as a guy, but again, women, I know you guys get your own treatment with this. But by the time we get to become adults, if you're an aggressive man, you get called toxic. If you're a woman, you get your own derogatory marks. And even just as bad as if you're a person with sort of a low level of aggression naturally, if you've been indoctrinated your whole life by school or parents or whatever, all these adults, and they're stamping that stuff down, you're probably going to grow up and have like, whatever aggressive energy you had, it's going to be like a fire that's been extinguished, and the only thing that's left is some glowing embers, right? You just got that little bit left. And you become a pushover. You have no backbone. You can't be forceful. You can't stand up for yourself. And again, using your words is nice, but what happens if someone's being physically aggressive towards you? You got to take care of yourself. Or what if they're doing it to someone else that you love or know? Sometimes using your words doesn't work. On the flip side, some people are way too aggressive, and it ends up happening where it's almost like that same fire. Instead of it being extinguished, they just threw too much on it, and they didn't give it a proper outlet, and they didn't contain it correctly, and the fire all of a sudden just starts to spread, and then eventually it blows up and catches everything else on fire. And you see this manifest with people where they don't have an outlet, or they don't know how to channel it in the right direction, and all of a sudden, boom, road rage happens, or they do really bad things because, again, this aggressive energy in them is just, it's going everywhere, and there's no place to channel it. And I think it's one of the coolest things about Jiu-Jitsu because it gives you a place to play with that. Because on the surface, when you look at Jiu-Jitsu, we're doing joint locks and chokes and wrestling and drills and all this stuff. We're doing all this physical stuff. But beneath that, I think that's probably just as important, the real important work. We're dealing with a lot of stuff. When you guys come into your first Jiu-Jitsu class, you probably were super nervous. I was. First time you go with a higher belt, probably kind of nervous. I knew I used to drive to the gym for the first couple of years, kind of like nervous in my stomach, like, okay, man, it's gonna be a tough day, because you knew it was gonna be a tough role. You're gonna have some tough guys there. You knew you were gonna be the nail at least a few times that day. And again, we deal with a lot of that. You go to competitions, you deal with self-doubt, you deal with frustration, anger, you deal with aggression, you also deal with joy, excitement, happiness that you won. All these emotions, good and bad. And I don't even call them bad, they are what they are, right? Negative, positive. They're all going all the time. And what's cool about that is, with aggression and that warrior side of you, it comes up to the surface and you get to deal with it. You get to play with it. For people that have come into my gym that were timid naturally, and a lot of you people even say this, a lot of you guys on the internet say this as well, but I've had students that have come into the gym and they were initially, you could look in their posture and they would be kind of like this. They'd walk in, their shoulders would be kind of slumped, and you could tell they lacked the ability to be forceful. And then you'd see them come in, chest is up, and they're walking, and you can just tell physically they feel good. And they even say it. They're like, Chewy, man, like when I started training, like I felt physically weak, and then I started to have this ability to feel strong. I felt good. I knew that I could do these things. I saw a side of myself that I'd never seen before, and it made me feel good. And then it carries over to the rest of my life where I feel like I can be firm and I can, take care of myself if I need to. Not just in a fight situation, but just even in situations where maybe you got to stand up to your boss who's being a dick to you or something. You never know. It gives them another sort of ability to, again, turn that on if they need it. On the other side, I've had so many guys, and this is where I come from, because when I was younger, I didn't have an outlet for all that aggression I had naturally, and I wasn't mean when I was younger. I was just one of those kids, like, I love to wrestle, I love to roll around and fight, and I love to, just with my buddies, right? If we were playing a game, I always wanted to win. I was just that kind of kid. It wasn't mean, it's just what it was. But again, going to school, my parents weren't too bad about it, but school, man, like, school, don't act that way, don't do that. And then by the time I got into wrestling, it finally gave me an outlet. And then jiu-jitsu, same thing, gave me an outlet for this energy as I'm becoming an adult. And I've noticed it so many times where it's helped me, one, just relax, get a little rid of the stress, but also in situations where, again, maybe I'm outside of the gym and I notice the frustration, I notice the anger, I notice the aggression coming out at me, and I believe this 100%. If it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, it would have came out in bad places, because when I was younger, I used to have a bit of a temper that would kind of flare out. It was almost like a pressure cooker, right? Like, it keeps building. Eventually you need that valve to, like, let some of that air out, let some of that pressure out. Jiu-jitsu a lot of times offers that, and again, from a lot of my students that come in, some of them have said, like, man, it's made a big difference on just kind of like keeping me even keel. Like, one of the guys, he works as he works at a really, like a nice white collar job, and he says it helps me not want to kill everybody every day, because he said he's in there and you get these people that are very frustrating to deal with, but he's able to kind of keep that level-headedness and be in control of himself, and I think it's a powerful thing. And so with aggression, I think one of the coolest things about jiu-jitsu and combat sports, but again, for my YouTube channel, mostly jiu-jitsu, is that we get a chance to play with that. We get a chance to like, if you're one of those people that didn't have a lot of aggression, it got stamped out, you get to get that fire going again and get a little bit going, and so then you get to fire, so that you can actually use it for something. Just like fire, right? Fire is a great example of aggression in that warrior side of ourselves, right? Because you can be a senseless fighter or you can be a conscious warrior. A senseless fighter is a fire that's just like firing and it's just catching everything on fire, right? It's harmful. The conscious warrior is a nice contained fire. It's there, you can use it for heat, you can cook food on it, you can do all sorts of things. And so again, the energy in us, it's not bad, it's not something to be shameful of, it's not something to be guilty of, it's just something we have to learn how to harness. And I think that a lot of times, if you look for it, if you want it to, it can help you, jiu-jitsu and combat sports and stuff. But anyway, that's the idea. If you want to look at the blog post, I put it down below in the description box, and let me know what you guys think. If you have any dealings with aggression, maybe you lacked it, maybe you have too much of it, what are your thoughts on it? I'm curious to see what you guys think, and I'll go down and check your comments later on. But that's the video, and guys, thank you so much for the questions you send, and I'll talk to you guys next time.